Timer's going. All righty. Group 11. As this week's readings and lectures focus on the various approaches to studying leadership, please discuss with your group which perspective or approach made the most sense to you. In considering the approach and theories presented, think about your own beliefs about leadership, how leaders can motivate followers and achieve goals. Well, for me, especially belief, but it also hit at home, having experience with other managers and interactions. When you work with the situational approach in the path goal theory, I figured for me, I think each entity is its own case, so each follower is different. So depending on their experience and their want to, there are different ways that you have to communicate to them, and there may be times where you have to be directive, like in the book where his example, the staff is maybe not as experienced, but they're willing to work. You got to be in there, showing them how to do it in whatever, or participative leadership. When you have a good solid group of workers with you, you'd like to feed off their opinions, because especially if they've got as many years or around as many years as you and been around the block a few times with the company, like you can, there may be things they see that you don't see that could help you, accomplish the same goal. So I think for me, that one definitely stuck out pretty well. The path goal theory and then just having different communication approaches. And in the book, it says two situational variables that are most influential in the section for appropriate leadership communication style was the nature of the followers and the nature of task, which is like I mentioned, each team you work with, person you work with is going to have their own different characters or needs. So that's my opinion. So
I liked this because I actually, when I first became a manager with Starbucks, we had to take a situational leadership class. And up until I moved, about 2 years ago, we moved to this house, I carried a card in my wallet that actually had the quadrants so that I could identify my partners and where they were at and how I needed to meet them. So is this person able and willing? Are they able and not willing? And kind of like we were talking about, this morning, I shared with Anthony this morning at work, I had to let somebody go. And it was because they were able, but they weren't willing. So I went through and I adapted how I coached them, how I met them at their level in my leadership. And unfortunately, they just weren't willing to make the changes that were needed to meet the expectations of the job description. So that's an unfortunate part, when somebody can't get there. But I always held on to that situational leadership because it is important. And I think we touched on it a little bit last week, but to make sure that we're catering our coaching or our teaching or our leading to the person, and then they feel special, right? It's not just one way for everybody. They feel like they're special, and oh, Sarah took the time to do this, and really getting to know who you're leading so that you can best decide what steps to take. So the situational leadership I thought was great. And then, I really what I highlighted was, it gives you the best way to respond to people who are able, willing, or whatever quadrant they're in. And then I believe that you use that to drive, transformational leadership, which is really something that my company has been moving towards in the past few years, is transformational leadership. We talk about it in almost every conference call or video conference or big open forum that we have. And it really truly is having that vision and that mission and wrapping your arms around everyone and making sure that they have the same compass that the company has.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What really stood out for me was the task, how they said leader, before it was a leader was born, but actually a leader is actually taught, and from the experience, they're made leaders. And one of the examples that they have here is Eleanor Roosevelt. And I also thought about all the first ladies. You know, they are not given a book, or they don't know what the whole title is to become the first lady. And so I watched an episode once with Oprah, and she was interviewing our past first lady, Michelle Obama, and she said she had to look up, you know, call all the previous first ladies, and they all helped her, and they just gave her a guidance. And what you're passionate about is where you're gonna actually be, you know, where you're gonna become a leader in. And I think Eleanor Roosevelt did that. She was shy, you know. She didn't want to be the person in the camera always, or speaking to in public, but she overcame that with passion of just helping out and being out there, you know, helping her husband.
Now, if only Congress would work as good as all our first ladies, right?
That's great. But I also think with the first lady thing is also, it's a little situational as well, because none of them focused on the same thing. They kind of went with what was going on with the times, where, you know, let's say Nancy Reagan was, you know, war against drugs, you know, Michelle Obama, it's about eating healthy again. So it really showing where our country is at the same time too. So I really like how all the leadership skills and everything, they all play a part together. You know, you have to focus on tasks. Sometimes you know, we like you said, we're Starbucks is focusing on situational leadership, but going towards transformational leadership. And that's the same thing my company was going for. So it's evolving, and it, you know, you see a lot of the same lessons in one of them. And basically it's, you know, there's no right or wrong answer. It's, you just have to go with it. And I think the most important thing is the communication part and the ethical part. You know, those are the two things that I always try to follow, is what do I feel is the right thing to do, and how can I speak to that in the best way, and who's my audience? Because that's very important. That's what, you know, I learned in the situational leadership classes I took. It's making sure what I'm thinking and what I'm trying to communicate is going to get to that person the right way.
It's true. It's hard. It's not easy. And it takes time to, it takes time to, I think that you can practice it, but I don't think it's ever perfected, because no two people are alike. So you're always having to adapt your approach, in my opinion.
I agree. And then sometimes someone is completely blocked off. They don't want to hear anything.
Yeah. And that's the difficult part. Those are like the person you had to fire.
Yeah. They're completely able. They're just not willing.
Yeah.
I thought the whole first lady thing was a good example. I didn't realize it, but I mean, once you see a first lady kind of taking on that seat, you would imagine that, you know, they could just come over, but they're like, oh, like, what does a first lady do? You know, like, they have all these responsibilities. So I thought that was really interesting. One of the, well, I could also relate a lot to the situational approach, because like in week 1, we talked a little bit about adapting to like each of the followers, and like when we have all these situations, I mean, we obviously have to also adapt. One of the quotes I liked a lot from the book was about basically a leader developing leaders. It's a quote from Harvey S. Firestein. It goes, the growth and development of people is the highest calling of leadership. And I think it's really interesting, especially when you're a leader, if you focus on developing new leaders, I think the approach would be completely different than if you're just like task orientated, or if you're just, you know, trying to meet certain goals. Because at this point, I mean, I think you would concentrate more on developing skills and people being successful, in those skills. And yeah, that's pretty much the first. Yeah, I thought that was one of the interesting quotes in the book.
I thought it was interesting. I'm trying to find it in my notes. It was in the lecture. It talked about when you're a leader and when you are developing other leaders, how you know, if you've been the favorite or you've not been the favorite before, maybe amongst your peers. And I've actually been in both positions, and currently I'm with a district manager who is very good at saying, okay, Sarah, I see your potential for this. I'm going to develop you in these ways. Here are these tools. And then she's doing that for other store managers. It's very different for me because my leader prior to that, I was, and again, I don't know if favorite is the right term, but that's what she used in the lecture. But the majority of my district manager's attention as far as developing went into me, and I could see where it kind of caused a rift between me and my peers. So it's definitely a characteristic of a good leader when they are developing others, that they're, you know, that they're giving a little bit to each one and not just saying you're going to be the next leader, knowing that in some way, shape, or form, you know, everybody wants to be developed, even if they may not want to be out of their current role. You know, some people are happy where they're at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but you know, you never want to get stagnant, right? You always want to be growing or learning something new, because then it just becomes robotic, and that's no fun, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that approach. My past manager did that as well, where she was developing each of us in our specific area, you know, where our strengths were. And we had weekly meetings, and it was really great to do that. Even though we weren't working on the same projects, we saw each other's strengths.
Yes.
So we were able to build on that, you know. So I had a peer that was, you know, amazing at like looking at, you know, a piece of my project that I was completely blind to. And then, you know, she would, you know, come in and say, you know, did you even think about this aspect of it? I'm like, of course not. Why would I think that?
Right.
And I was able to work on that piece a little bit with her, and then vice versa. And that helped our team, you know, complete projects faster, better. And we, you know, at the end, we won awards like here and there within the company, because we were able to key in on those different strengths from, you know, just right there on our team. So
awesome.
I really like that, and was inspired by my manager when she did that. And you know, and it's very difficult to see the strengths in everyone, because I think like with one of your past managers, Sarah, where, you know, she's like, oh, you're my favorite. You just feel like, you know, a connection with one person. So you kind of like, I think you naturally gravitate towards that. So to take a step back and see the strengths of other people that you may not connect with right away or see yourself in that's a task in itself. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
That actually may fall in line with the relational approach with leadership member exchange, where you go in the 3 phases, where you have the first phase where you're a stranger and you're filling each other out. Like, is this guy going to be cool or okay? Then you kind of see, okay, like we can kind of get along. And then you know, eventually get to that partnership where, you know, like Sarah, like you were saying, like now she's telling you you're the greatest ever, you know, and you're going to be the best. You know, she's gotten comfortable enough that she can pass that on to you. Know you're not going to go around telling everybody else, oh, she favors me or whatever, you know. So we got essentially like 40 seconds. Anybody got anything to say? We good?
That's crazy how fast that goes.
We ready to call it then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right. Well, I'm stopping it.